And now, ladies and gentlemen, to kick off today's event, we would like to bring someone very special to that stage. She is most known for formulating key business laws and policies, including the Vietnam Enterprise Law and Competition Law. She's been integral to the evolutions of the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's also been Vice President of Institute for Development Studies, as well as an advisor to the Prime Minister Research Commission. She's a founding member of the National Councils for Sustainable Development and Competitiveness Enhancement. She was active in assisting Vietnam integrating to both ASEAN and WTO, and was on team sponsored by the government and the World Bank to produce the Vietnam 2035 report. So now, everybody, please join me now in welcoming one of Vietnam's foremost economic researchers, Ms. Pham-Chi-Lan.
Good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure and privilege to be here today to share to you something about the report 2035, with the purpose of giving you a picture of Vietnam. When we developed the report, we all in the researching team set up by the government of Vietnam thought that, we are making a report for the implementation of younger generations of Vietnam. So the young people in Vietnam will mainly be the ones to implement what we try to set forth for the future of Vietnam. So I think all of you who are here today were the startup companies, young and not so young people, all can do something to help implementing the aspirations of Vietnam by about 20 years from now. Well, the topic of my paper is on building a better Vietnam for 2035. The Vietnam's aspiration for the year is to, by 2035, Vietnam will be an upper middle income country with the per capita income of about $20,000 US in PPP terms, in a price, not in a real value, moving toward becoming a prosperous, creative, equitable, and democratic society. In fact, we debated a lot on what major objectives that Vietnam want to achieve by that time. And we all wish that Vietnam could be a prosperous country. Of course, we cannot reach the rich level of the world. It's no practical for Vietnam to get there by that time. And it would take about 10 to 20 more years for Vietnam after 2035 to move from the level of a higher middle income country to become a rich country in future. But we do want to have Vietnam as a prosperous country, a creative one. Vietnam should develop based on creation, not like we did so far with the modern approach based mainly on natural resources, exporting to export in raw forms, or using cheap labors in Vietnam rather than more well-educated or skilled labors in Vietnam. We do want to have more equitable development for Vietnam. Today, you all know that after 30 years, the gap between the rich and the poor in Vietnam become bigger and bigger. So we don't want to have that. We want to have inclusive growth in Vietnam in future and democratic society. Democratic society is so important so that every citizen of Vietnam could have their voice heard by the government, heard by the leadership in Vietnam, so that they can participate actively in the process of development of their own life and their home country. That's our major objectives. And together with that, we wish to have Vietnam with more urbanized, with majority of people living in urbanized area. We wish to have service and industries with higher percentage in the development, and agriculture may reduce its basic agriculture contribution to the economy. But services and industries surrounding and in strong relations with agriculture will become very important area for the current farmers to move to other activities, but still based on their homeland in rural area. And the private sector share should be at least 80% of the GDP in Vietnam. Today, you know that private sector has the share of about 40% of GDP only. So we do want that private sector will be the key players in Vietnam in the coming years and to become bigger in by that year. And we wish also HDI of Vietnam would be better at around 0.7 point. And last but not least, if we wish to achieve that GDP per capita, we should have a GDP per capita growth of averagely 7% a year in 20 years. You know, today it's still so difficult for Vietnam to achieve 6.7% of GDP growth, not per capita. Per capita today we have about 5.6% of per capita GDP growth a year. But we need 7% of per capita growth a year. It means from 8 to 9% growth of GDP a year in order to achieve that aspiration. So you know that's so difficult to achieve. Wow. And here you can see different scenario of Vietnam development. Wow. Sorry. Yeah. We have a 4 scenario. The highest level is the level that I just mentioned too. And if we fail to achieve that high growth rate, we could be at around the level of Malaysia in 2010. And that would be about 18,000 US dollars in PP terms for Vietnam. And if we do as normal as so far, then Vietnam could stop at the level of around 15,000 US dollars in PP terms. It means Vietnam by 2035 will be equal to Malaysia in 2001. So we would have 35 years backwards as compared with Malaysia. And we don't know by that time how Malaysia could go to, how far. And in the worst situation, Vietnam could be even worse than today's level. And of course, nobody wants to see that. Key opportunities in support to our objectives are the trade agreements and integration process of Vietnam to make Vietnam a better position in the global value chains in future. Secondly is innovation. We need both technological and business innovation. Innovation or startup today does not mean only adopting high tech, but also in improving or transforming your business models to a new one, to a modern one, and more efficient one. And we look to China as a challenge to Vietnam today to become more opportunity for Vietnam in future. We need to explore the opportunity in China rather than only receive all pressures and challenges from China like today. So we need to change our own as well. And the domestic middle class in Vietnam will be larger. Today it is around 10 or 15% of Vietnamese people are in the middle class. By 2035, we hope that Vietnam can have 52% of the population in the middle class, and it will be a huge market of Vietnam, domestic market for so many things. And last but not least, the economic modernization agenda would be important for Vietnam as well. With this, we means that modernization in the institutional system in Vietnam. We need better reform in institutional system so that we can achieve all what we wish to achieve in future. There are major concerns for Vietnam from the economic development experience in the past 30 years of reform in Vietnam. They are mainly in productivity issues. Vietnam is still a country with rather low level of productivity as compared with the rest of Asian countries. We are similar level like Laos or Cambodia, and we are much lag behind Thailand or other countries in productivity. Secondly, we have very weak innovation system. So have a better innovation system is one of the keys for Vietnam to develop in future. The third issue is that urbanization in Vietnam so far has been rather fast. We have the level of urbanization of about 32% today. But urbanization could not help the economy to develop better. Both two big cities of Vietnam, Hanoi and Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, have a lot of problems that we have to solve before these cities could be really a good city to help the development of the population living in the city as well as the surrounding area. And last but not least, the concern about rate growth in Vietnam and the climate change issues. Vietnam has been developing with very high cost of environment, and we don't want to continue to pay such high cost for environment in future. We have to stop that kind of development and change to the new one. I don't have time to go into more detail, and if any of you want to look to that, you can look to my paper in my slide future. Oh, another emerging issues in Vietnam, sorry, I want to return to that, is on the challenge on the aging population in Vietnam. We have aging population. We are in the golden age today, but we have also aging population. So by around 2032, the golden age of Vietnam will be finished, and Vietnam will become a more aging population. So the current young population are so important for Vietnam, so that Vietnam has to rush into the new model of development. Otherwise, we could miss the chance to develop during the golden age of population, where we see in most of countries, they got rich mainly during the time that they have a golden age population. So Vietnam should not miss that chance in future. Oh, I have only a few minutes more. Wow. Sorry for... Here I want to refer mainly to the issues that we are discussing today. We want to have sorry, yeah, it moved. Here, the three pillars for Vietnam development in future are also the ones that we are discussing today, the topics of today's discussion. They are economic prosperity with environmental sustainability. So for all businesses, we want to develop a new business today. You need always to take care of the environmental issues in Vietnam. You should not violate the laws and regulations and good practices in environmental development of this country. We would not support any business with the grey development. Secondly, is equity and social inclusion. You should try to develop your own business also from the point of view of inclusive growth of this country, to make everybody benefit from your own development. And the third pillar for development of Vietnam is a capable and accountable state. With this, we want to transform also the state of Vietnam to become a more capable one, a more transparency one, a more accountable one. And every citizen should also take some responsibility to support the government and to do with the government to achieve that. That's not only the responsibility of the state itself, but also the responsibility of all citizens. So we wish that in future you can have also your own contribution to Vietnam, to the 3 pillars of Vietnam, to build these 3 pillars in order to achieve our aspiration for 2035. My time is almost finished, and I'm so sorry for that. So you can look to the report Vietnam 2035 in the website that the government of Vietnam is available there, as well as in the website of the World Bank, the website on called Open Knowledge, in which we have both the Vietnamese and English versions available, as well as details on many chapters, key chapters of the report. And in that you can see the message that get through the whole report is on institutional reform in Vietnam. If you want to have a modernized economy with the role of private sector as the leading role, we need to reform the institution system in Vietnam. If you want innovation, we need also reform in the institutional system for innovation in Vietnam. And for all other aspects, environment, urbanization, social aspect, we all need institutional reform. So that's the key message of the report. And my time is over. I wish to stop here. Thank you very much for your attention. And please visit the website to see our details in our paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. PhamChiLan. Please come here. Such an extraordinary woman. Everybody, so a big applause for Ms. PhamChiLan. And on behalf of the organizer, we have a small token of appreciation for you.
Thank you very much again.